Nerd, geek, dork, weirdo. These are words commonly used to describe a misunderstood subculture, but what is it about them that's misunderstood? What sets them apart from these other labels, and why do they call themselves otaku? Come with us on this magical journey to discover their lifestyle. Otaku, a Japanese term used to refer to people with obsessive interests, particularly anime, manga, or video games. The word otaku has its roots in Japan. It was originally derived from a term that has the same pronunciation of otaku. The original word is a term that refers to another's house or family, but was also used in place of the word you as a more respectful way to address someone. However, the modern version of this word is written differently in either one of two ways. This is to differentiate from the original term. The word as we know it today was first coined in the anime Macross, in which the main character frequently used otaku to address others. Eventually, Macross fans started to use the word otaku to address each other while role-playing characters from the show. From that point, the definition of otaku evolved from a second-person pronoun to what it is today. But what is it exactly?
Rabid fan, I guess would be the best way to put it. Otakus have a tendency to obviously focus on anime, which is a fantastic thing to focus on. But yeah, these guys love to take it to the next level and love to throw themselves into their fandom, which is absolutely fascinating.
It essentially just means somebody who likes something extremely. There are people who have a tendency to be into otakuism, like cosplay or collecting manga, playing arrow games, video games, or the people that you see who wear foxtails in public or so. They're kind of outside of normalcy.
Otakus are often simply labeled as a nerd or a geek, but what kind of characteristics are specific to them, and what makes them similar or different from other labels?
It's kind of a tough thing to categorize. I think there are certainly many otaku that take it to an extreme to where it becomes a bad thing, but this is true for anything. Generally speaking though, true otaku are pretty knowledgeable about whatever their niche is. Example, sports fans know their athletes, even to a point to fantasize about their favorite dream team. You see this in fantasy football and things like that. And even car otaku can recognize a make and year just by seeing the body.
They're very dedicated and very knowledgeable, and they have a tendency to be very creative with their fandom, as opposed to like a Star Trek fan or a fan of another genre, I would say, would be not necessarily as creative with their stuff. There's cosplay, there's so many different ways to express anime fandom that otakus have a tendency to explore all facets of that kind of fandom and utilize them fully and find a way to express them in the most ultimate way possible. It's fantastic. They're very smart. The average nerds or geek are usually very smart but aren't very socially outgoing. I think otaku's a little bit more socially outgoing because, well, at least in the con kind of aspect, they are, because you get them all in one place and they have a tendency to make friends very easily. They have a tendency to form groups, large groups, without really a whim or anything else like that. They just go and they find what they want and they love it. It's fantastic. Yeah, like I said, they have a tendency to be a little more sociable.
In order to fully understand why otakus are so passionate, let's take a look into what draws them in anime and what keeps them coming back for more. First, it's important to understand what anime is. Essentially, the word anime, as you might have guessed, is short for animation in Japanese. In the US, the word anime is used to refer to animations that originate from Japan. Anime was first introduced into the Western world in the 1980s and has gained unprecedented popularity over the past 30 years. Though at first look, anime probably doesn't seem much different than any normal cartoon, but there are actually some key differences between the two.
to it?
Anime has a tendency to tell very adult stories in ways that American animation and American media can't really get to yet. I mean, when you grow up in America, you're very used to being told a story in a certain way. And anime doesn't necessarily tell the story in the same way, or it tells a different story. And there's something very alluring about that. There's something that's very, very drawing about that, because you get stories about giant robots. You get stories that are fantastic and high technology. You get stories that are very wide in their scope, and I'm not entirely sure that I'm not entirely sure, but there's very little American media that has a tendency to do that. Anime does that quickly and easily, and has a tendency to wrap up your brain in a kind of more fleshed out mythology. That's a lot easier to grasp, and a lot easier to just get very, very excited about.
Another key difference is in the art style. Japanese anime tends to model their art after real life more than American cartoons, with the exception of the eyes, of course. American cartoons tend to have a wide variety from show to show, from realistic shows like King of the Hill to shows with extremely distorted art styling such as South Park. One of the most distinctive features of anime is the large eyes of the character. The main reason that anime uses this tactic is to emphasize expressions through them. With bigger eyes, the artist has a larger range of emotions to portray, and also ensures that the viewer does not miss any details in the character's emotions. Anime also has very exaggerated movements. This is for similar reasons as the large eyes. It allows for greater expression of the character's emotions, usually to stress the feeling to a greater extent than normal.
Over time, as with any other subculture, otaku started forming groups in order to express their fandom with others of similar interests. Many of these small groups ended up turning into full-scale conventions. There are now hundreds of anime conventions in the US alone. For example, Nondiscon is an anime convention that started with a small group of students from the University of Colorado at Denver and Metropolitan State University. Since then, it has grown into the largest convention in the 14 states surrounding Colorado, as well as one of the top 10 in the country. These conventions have turned into something that otakus look forward to every year with great anticipation. With every year, there are new events to experience and new people to meet.
What makes cons and conventions worth my time is a lot of it's just I like meeting new people who like similar interests. Like there's board games and things there. There's anime music videos. There's all sorts of neat stuff to buy and to see.
Everybody at the convention who you come to is at least your friend. You're there for a certain goal. You're there for a common like, a common passion. And I think one of the big draws of con, or one of the things that gets a lot of people interested in it, is the fact that as soon as you show up to that building, everybody there is your friend. You can sit down and talk with anybody in the world about what anime you like and why you like it, and they will have an opinion and not look down on you for it. So I think the convention is a fantastic community gathering kind of thing, and it's a community as to where these kind of communities don't necessarily either pop up or exist in other places. Conventions are a fantastic place for you to go, be able to be who you want to be, and to not be looked down on it, and to be praised essentially for being who you want to be. It's a fantastic one.
One of the most popular activities at anime conventions is cosplay.
Cosplay is a word that is derived from costume and play. It's essentially putting on a costume and sort of embellishing that character's attitude, their essence, sort of. It's not in any kind of spiritual way. It's purely just for fun and just kind of enjoying the entire culture of Japanese anime and other kinds of characters from video games, from books, movies, you kind of name it. It's kind of another way to just be involved in the entire fan community.
Many otakus simply go out and buy a pre-made costume for conventions. However, for others, it is a hobby that requires extreme dedication.
For me, I create costumes that are full body animal and creature suits, which means that it's a lot more work than just some clothes and being a human-like character. I have to change my entire physical appearance. Therefore, it takes way more time than I'd like it to. Anywhere between 100 to 200 hours is about average for me. Sometimes it can be more, sometimes it's less, depending on if I've ever done a certain technique before or I have to develop a new one.
Otakus are generally perceived by the public as people who leech off their parents in their basement, isolating themselves from the rest of the world. But this stereotypical view of otakus is simply not true.
I think it's a misnomer. I think it's something that is obviously not true. You can say the same thing about nerds of any ilk, and that's always the general kind of stigma and predetermined thought that comes with something like otaku. I think it's wrong. I have seen very few otaku who sit in another basement, and that's the only thing they know, and that's the only thing they see. So I just think it's something that it's a predetermined thought that people have, and that's wrong. I mean, I don't see otaku living in people's basements. I see people who get out. I see people who enjoy themselves, and I see a whole bunch of good people behind it. So it's it's kind of a prison for small minds.
At first glance, otaku seem just like any other nerd or geek. However, contrary to the general public's beliefs, otakus are actually very social, especially when brought together, as well as being remarkably creative and smart. Overall, otakus are just simply people who love to express their passion and dedication in anime, even going as far as decorating their rooms with anime merchandise, creating extravagant costumes, and traveling miles to conventions just to show off their fandom and find others that feel the same.